Hi, Elisabeth Stitt from Joyful Parenting Coaching. I'm so glad that you're here today. And I have a special guest, Joanne Light. Like me, she is an educator at heart and in practice, but she has a whole lot of other experience on top of that. And she and I were talking about that transitional time between, when we're the captain of the ship of our children, and as we begin to transition our kids to adulthood, and it might feel a little bit painful for us too. And we might be saying, where did my sweet baby go? And that's what Joanne and I want to talk about today. But first, Joanne, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. My name is Joanne Light. I have a background in education, a doctorate in education and counseling, and I've been parent coaching for a couple of years and life coaching before that. I'm delighted to be with Elisabeth today. She's an expert in parenting. We thought we'd just chat back and forth about tweens to teens and how it's difficult, but it's also wonderful. So I would say to parents out there, enjoy every minute because it's going to go very quickly. So, I mean, there's certainly things that we could give you sound advice on, but I want to say before we give you all those little tips that it is hard. Parenting is the hardest job truly you'll ever have. And we all want to be good parents and we all want to do the best for our kids. And that varies from kid to kid and parent to parent and what your style of parenting really is. I recommend a balanced style of parenting, but that the tweens, those 11 and 12-year-olds, they're getting ready and moving on and trying to they have different priorities. But Elisabeth and I were just talking, try to remember that your calm is the most important thing that you can do for your tween and your teen. If you let your emotions get dysregulated, you're never going to reach them in a meaningful way. And I think just promise yourself that in 2021, you're not going to yell. Just make that promise. Write it down somewhere. Put Post-it notes in every room in the house. Don't yell. Don't yell. So sometimes you have to back off and say, I need a little fresh air right now. I'm going to go get a drink of water. Let's talk about this later.
Yeah.
Or, because you need to, emotional responses really don't work very well.
Well, and I have we talked about two metaphors to help with that. Mm-hmm. One is the idea that your child is on the roller coaster, going up and down with their hormones. Your job is to stand on the platform, knowing that this will pass, knowing that the ride is going to come to an end and that you're going to have a little space where you can do it, where you can calm down. And it may feel like that space isn't going to come for 3 or 4 years. Fact of the matter is, you'll probably get it, and then they'll get back on the ride and you'll get it again. So that's one metaphor that might be helpful. Like, my job is to stand on the platform.
Be a pillar. You're the pillar.
Be a pillar, not even be on the platform, just be the pillar.
Be the pillar, because you don't want to get bulldozed and you don't want to be a doormat, but stand as a pillar. And it's hard. It's really hard. But if you can regulate your emotions and not get to know your triggers and heal those triggers so that you don't go on the ride with them, because you're not helping them by doing that. And I think sometimes parents unknowingly bring their own childhood to light through their own parenting. They, you might say, I'm not going to be my mother, but you have a long history with your mother, and that can impact how you handle your own child. So you want to just take a step back and think about what you can do for your teen and your tween. And to me, the most important thing is connection. Any way you can keep a solid connection, because then they know you care. You have to have unconditional love, not just when they're doing something awesome. And by the way, when they're doing something awesome, note it, make a big fuss about it. Because teens, see if you agree with this, Elisabeth. Teens, what's important to them? They want to know what's happening to my body. and what's going to be my sexuality? Are my parents proud of me? Will I be
Yes.
okay in school?
Yeah.
Am I good enough? Those are, do I fit in?
Yes. Do I fit in is a
You're
really
11
big
year old.
one, right?
Exactly.
And let's just, parents, you probably know this. And at the same time, I think it's important to remember that right now it is the teen's job to separate from you.
Right.
And that is a painful process. And part of the way that they do it is to reject everything that you are. And so if we cannot take that personally,
No, right.
right,
Very
and recognize that this is a necessary developmental stage, and that in order to find their own voice, their own selves, their own identity, they start doing that to a large degree by rejecting everything which is yours. Trust that they're probably going to come back to it later.
Yeah, and they're hearing you. If
And
you're
they're hearing you.
if you're modeling wonderful behavior and character development, and you talk to them about what interests them, and they may not seem like they're listening, but you never know. Because I do remember this, Elisabeth, with my teens. I might have said, maybe you should think about solving that problem this way. And they seem to reject that idea. But lo and behold, a month later, I can hear them saying things that were relevant to what they had been suggested.
Yeah.
So I think you have to just trust yourself and feel and take care of yourself. And then you can, I think, better deal with the problems that come up. And you must also remember that when the teens get upset, you get upset that they're upset, and you want to fix it, but you just have to listen, because sometimes it's like they didn't think their blouse looked right at school that day, and they get emotional because they're at that between their hormones, as Elisabeth mentioned, and their brain development at that point. Emotions run high. But Elisabeth uses that I love that metaphor, but I also think about a snow globe.
Yes.
Shake that snow globe, and oh my gosh, it's everywhere. And if you just try to be a little patient, that the glitter will settle. And
right. And remember that you're outside snow globe.
Right? Good point.
They're in that world, they're in all that chaos. It's not your job to get in there with them.
No, absolutely
right?
Not.
It's your job to observe it and to watch it and be present with it.
Very, very present. Good point.
But you can watch it settle down and be outside. And I like that. And the other thing I wanted to point out was the irony is that this is a big, big developmental stage for the kids, but for you too as a parent, because you are really having to transform yourself from it's my way or the highway, I'm in charge, I'm the captain of the ship.
And they admired you for that. They looked to you for that.
That's right. And that was appropriate. It was good. Yes. They needed a strong hand at the helm.
That's their developmental stage. Yep.
Yep. And of course, what's so tricky about sort of 12 to 18 is by 18, they better be in their own boat. It might be a little boat, but they better be in their own boat. You might be sailing alongside them, but they've got to have their own hand on the helm. And you can't wait until they're 18 to say, okay, here's your boat, you try it out.
Or to say, set sail, because very often they still need some of your unconditional love, even at 18.
That absolutely. And all through this process, especially when they're on the roller coaster, they need your faith.
Right.
They need your faith and your vision and your clear confidence that this is a stage. Right?
They have to know you trust them.
They have to know that you trust them, and that you know that you see their future success and their future happiness, and that you absolutely see that they are going to get there, even if the path is pretty windy at times.
Right. The other thing about teen or any child's age, really, when they get really upset, as Elisabeth said, you can't jump in to fix it or to change that. but you also should be aware to try to get to the root cause, because there are times when a child gets very upset or a teen gets really sad or angry or irritable, and it's the tip of the iceberg. And you need to really try to work with, if you think something else is going on, you need to work with your child to get to what's the root cause, because how they look that day maybe isn't really what's bothering them. Maybe they had a fight with their friend, and you just have to remember that their behavior is a result of their emotions. And you have to deal with it knowing that should be the perspective from which you come. And communication and connecting, Elisabeth and I both will tell you that's the most important thing you can do. Regulate your own emotions, connect with your child, choose love. I mean, it sounds so simple. It's not simple, but that's my recommendation.
Yes. And the way I express choose love is the relationship is more important than the issue.
Good point.
Right. So that, whatever it is that we're fighting about, it's really okay to go like, okay, time out. Come here.
Yep.
Ugh, I don't want a hug. Yep. I need a hug. We need the hug.
Right.
We still don't have a solution for how many
thousands find it later. We can find it later.
How many thousands of hours you were on the screen. But we can find it later. Exactly. We can take this up again tomorrow.
Right. And if everyone's in emotional, angry state, that's why I say don't yell. I just walk away and find a time when your teen or your tween might be more apt to have a conversation with you. Because remember, their prefrontal cortex is not developed. That part of their brain, the emotion side of their brain, that sympathetic nervous system is much more active than their prefrontal cortex at that young teen age. They're really developing that. And
I think it bears repeating because it's such an important idea, because we think like, what's wrong with our kids? And their amygdala, their emotion center, is bigger during this time period. And their thinking center, their prefrontal cortex, is under construction.
Exactly. It's pruning and doing other things, and it makes it a super learner. They're super learners, but they are high emotional and they will take some risks. And some risks are okay as long as you have boundaries and you've discussed rules for safety and morality. That's important.
That was actually one of the most interesting things that I think that I have found from, the recent neuroscience discoveries and understanding. I used to think that the rebellion and risk-taking was a byproduct of, that all those hormones and all that emotion was a byproduct of the physical development.
Yeah.
And it really, I think, gives a new perspective to go like, no, the job is to separate. And that means both physically and emotionally. And that's a hard job to do. So the body, in its wisdom, is going to give the child some extra reward for rebelling and for taking risks, because it is a fundamentally risky thing to do, to separate from your parent, from the source of food, shelter, clothing, love, connection, and everything else. And so for the body to now go like, oh, when I do something that's daring, I'm going to get extra dopamine rushes. I'm going to get extra adrenaline rushes that make me feel super great. That's a helpful perspective, I think, to go like,
I think brain development, it's not just the hormones that are coursing through their bodies. And teenagers, they get a bad rap out there. All the teens, they're impulsive and rash and arrogant and impudent and all those things. And yes, all teens at some point have those qualities, but there's a mature, thoughtful, trying hard kind of side to most teens. And that's the side you should talk to, try to recruit that side to come forward and have a conversation. But because their brain development is in flux, and you're right, it's separate and it will only integrate later on. It will take a while. So it is important to stay outside of that and be aware and
Right. But I just think I personally find it comforting. I personally feel like, okay,
it's
one of the
not
things
you.
that helps me to stand outside the snow globe is to know that, like, oh, this is a necessary part of the process,
That's right. That's
as
right.
is this the self-absorption and the self-centeredness, right? It's
They
like,
have to do it.
if I'm going to figure out who I am separate from you, mom, separate from you, dad, that takes a lot of time and energy.
And literally,
Yeah.
literally a lot of time and a lot of energy. And you want to conserve their energy for good things, not for having a row, every night
Yeah.
over homework or
Yeah.
what they're wearing, and choose your battles and don't be judgmental. It's just, and even if you think you're not being judgmental, if it's in your tone, whoa, they got you. They're smart.
Well, okay.
Those teen brains may be developing, but they're pretty smart.
And let's be clear that if it's hard for us not to take their behavior personally,
Mm-hmm.
it is 5 times as hard for them.
Correct.
And everything that we say, do, look, is going to feel like a personal attack. So, if you're thinking about, like, oh, I've got to pay the water bill, and you've got a sneer in your face because of it, and your child walks into the room and you're still thinking water bill, as you will look over at that child is doing a complete 100% inventory
Of you.
of themselves. How's
Both of you.
how's my hair? How's my thing? Do I look like,
yeah.
oh my God,
Right.
oh, she's thinking, she can smell my breath from here. She knows I didn't brush my teeth. She's mad because I forgot to do the such and such.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You're thinking water bill. Kids see the expression,
That's right.
assumes it's about them.
Yeah.
They assume you are judging and finding them wanting.
Right.
Yeah.
So you have to, somehow be on constant watch, I guess. But they'll get through, and you'll get through. I think another thing to think about is to share stories with them of your growing up and remembering your teen years, and being honest and transparent. I think that makes them feel more accepted. The other thing that I have come to believe in is family meetings. I don't know.
Absolutely. One of my favorites.
I just think that if every family will, be it once a week or once, some people are really very adamant about it, but even if once every or twice a month, there's a time when everyone comes together and it's mandatory and everyone brings, someone leads the meeting, and you trade off maybe who's leading the meeting and get agenda items from everyone. And there are ground rules. You sit around and you are kind and compassionate and honest. No snarky behavior is allowed at that particular time. And everyone agrees to listen and give feedback, and maybe have a topic of discussion or something about the family, how the chores are being done. And after this meeting, do something fun. Play, what's the cat? Play.
Oh, yes. What did we play? Exploding Kittens.
Exploding Kitten.
Yes.
Or watch a movie and have popcorn. I just think you will be amazed at how grounded that makes the kids feel. And it's a time to work out, if there's multiple children, that sibling thing as well. Trying to understand one another, I think, and feeling those emotions and letting them feel them and talk about them is so great if you can do it. So family meetings, family stories.
Those are all great things. And just as you know for your kids that this is going to pass, know for yourself that this is going to pass, and that your relationship may feel tender, it may feel torn for some time. And just trust right. that your kids are going to come back to you. And that if you stay present with your message of love and your confidence that they are going to be just fine at the other end.
They'll figure it out.
And that they're going to figure it out. You're there to help them in any way you can, but you really trust in their ability to figure out who they are and who they're going to be in the world.
And let them do that.
and
Let them
let them
be
do
who they
that.
are.
Yeah.
That's a
do
really
it.
hard one for parents, I think, in today's culture is, you have this expectation or idea of what your child should be. And that's a really hard one to get over when it doesn't always turn out to be exactly as you imagined or pictured. But the teens, they're intuitive, they're bright. There's so much potential there in each of them in these teenage years. And it's just,
Oh,
like you said, you got to just stand back and get through it. And the only other thing I want to add, Elizabeth, it's not shameful or guilty or weak to ask for help.
thank you.
I
Thank
just
you.
think, be it from a friend, a therapist, a coach, it just is critical to share and get support.
And we don't have the same support systems that we tend to have, the mom groups, the mommy and me classes, the
Right.
congregating on the schoolyard.
Right.
We don't tend to have when they get to middle school. And so reaching out and finding that community is so critical and so important.
It's okay.
Yes.
Ask
Joanne,
for
thank you
help.
so much for
Thank
coming and
you.
chatting today. I really appreciate it. And
It was
yes,
fun. And if you have questions, I'm sure we can get you can go to my website at joannehlight.com, and there's a whole section on burnout, and you can contact me and do a free consult. And Elisabeth, I know at her Joyful Parenting Coaching site on Facebook.
yeah,
Many
Joanne
ways
is
to reach her as well.
Joanne is especially gifted at helping parents clear their own stuff out of the way, so
That's kind of
they-
my passion.
yeah, so that they really can bring a clarity to their parenting that isn't like lots of barnacles from their past.
It's very true. Thank
Very-
you, Elizabeth. That is a very good way of describing. I mean, I love all aspects of it, but that is a thing that I think is key to feeling good about your journey of parenting.
Yeah,
And remember,
exactly.
it is a journey. It is a journey.
It is a journey. All right. Well, we'll make sure that all of the links and contact info are posted below. And Joanne, thank you so very
Thank
very
you,
much.
Elizabeth. This was fun.
That's great.